Okay, Olia, we are live.
Hi, Vincent. We are. Well, thankfully.
Here we are.
So,
Yes. Let's wait some second that people get connected. Uh, okay. So how are you? First of all,
where am I? I am in Leeds in UK right now, and I'm on a lockdown for 3 weeks straight now. What about you? How long have you been there in your flat?
and it's the second week already in a lockdown in Moscow. So I'm quite fine, trying to resist in this new atmosphere, in this new mood. So it's quite heavy because I was used to communicate a lot with people, but face to face, live,
Yeah.
and of course I was used to practice sports, not only basketball in the gym, but also to run a lot outside. So it's quite hard. So it's not
Yeah.
that easy to feel like recluse. Like now we can feel now as all those people that is at home arrest. I mean, every time I was wondering what they do, how they can. Of course, we have one plus that we are not completely forced to don't step out our building, so we can walk dogs, we can go to the shop. So it's quite different, but still, it's my third day that I don't step out. I mean, I don't
The
leave the
third
building.
day,
The
3 days
third
in a row.
consecutive
Whoa.
days, yeah, I'm trying
Whoa.
like to be a master zen with myself.
Yeah.
So and it's very very difficult, but I'm trying to respect the rules because come on, it's for our wellness. So let me introduce you because we have some already somebody that is following us.
Well,
So
okay, and then let's just move on to complaining about
I will try. I
the
will try
difficulties
to
of
don't.
our
I
new
will
life.
try to don't. I will try to don't mispronounce as usual your surname. Huh?
Go
So
ahead, try it.
live with me today, Olga Salaviova, um, senior lecturer at Higher School of Economics in Moscow, Department of Social Communication.
Communication.
Yeah,
Yeah.
social communication, and currently PhD candidate at the Open University in the UK. I'm right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, my department back in agency is called technically the integrated communication. So, but
Integrated
this is close. This is like the integration of various social communications. Yeah.
Yeah, but they often change. Come on, they
Well,
often change the name. The name. So
well,
sometimes
not
I
not
can.
not not not, not since then. The last time I talked to my colleagues, but yeah. Hi, Vincent. Hi,
Okay,
and hi,
hi.
everyone.
So I hope you are fine there. So currently you are in Leeds. So but your university in the UK is where?
It is in Milton Keynes, but it's a little bit uh down there to the south, closer to London.
Wonderful, wonderful
Yeah.
town, small, lovely.
Yeah, small, lovely with many robots actually going around. This is the pilot place for the testing of the delivery robots, which probably could be our future. And I bet that people back in Milton Keynes, they're not having that many problems with the delivery systems because of this technology, as this little like robots who ride around the town and they just deliver food and other things that people order online to their homes. Yeah.
So before to explore our topic of the day, so social media, coronavirus, and what's going on, can you give us a peek in the UK nowadays? So we have this this terrible news that Boris Johnson, if we are supporting or not supporting, but it's always very very sad news that he's now receiving an intensive care in St Thomas Hospital in London. So it's quite sad because this is a sign that, talking about communication, of course, that anybody is immune. So we are all risking something in this battle. So what's going on in the UK? What kind of measure have been taken?
So yeah, I mean, I'm not that big of an expert on the UK generally because I just moved here in February and I gotta get a chance to face everything since the very beginning at the same time. So I'm not very integrated in like social media community, and it's hard to say whatever is going on in between people. But I can get quite a nice picture from the official media, and from the very beginning, we've been just about 2 to 3 weeks behind Italy, I suppose. And the situation was pretty much the same as everywhere, I would say, because for some reason each country would think that they have some sort of this global immunity, and this is not going to be like that. It's not going to be as terrifying as everywhere else. So we are very special. So when the first information hit from across the Europe, and then the first cases started appearing here, I just seen people kind of like rejecting the idea of coronavirus hitting the UK. And then things became more and more serious, and yeah, and the lockdown was introduced, I think it was 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So the social distancing measures were imposed, and then the pubs were closed. I don't think that pubs ever been closed here in the UK, apart from some miserable events from the past. But yeah, so the country's been affected by this, and the and people have been admitting that the coronavirus is striking through some time. So it was not just like immediate. But the lockdown regulations not very harsh, I would say. They're not very strict. So we are allowed to leave our house for to do some sports, and we also can go to the stores. So once a day we can go out for a run. Well, if we are alone or with members of the household. But I think that these measures of social distance has been violated by citizens, and this is not good. And I am afraid that if this continues, and there would be some more cases, and the
Uh,
further spread,
um,
they
what
could
do you
be
think?
worse.
What do you think? Who is violating more? So there is an age group, or a group of the population that is not. I mean, most, let me say, affected by these rules, and they are rioting against these rules. I think that Leeds is not London, so even the culture of the people is a bit different.
Yeah, and it's also Leeds here is it's a student city, right? So quite many students been crushing parties as the university went shut. So they just get a chance to kind of to have more free time, and I would say that the younger people would do that, and yeah, mostly. But in London, we can see a very different picture. But people there have very different lifestyles, and it's much more difficult to adapt to the lockdown in a big city, especially when you don't have that much time, right? So you need to change everything from your work to your, like, I don't know, household routines, just to adapt to the smaller apartments for the, I don't know, for the different places, for the lack of the fresh air, basically. So yeah, it's just
So
different.
do
What
you see teenager or elderly people or middle-aged people on the street? I mean,
I
not
see
respecting the
mostly
rules?
younger people would do that, but I cannot say that they're like, violating rules in a hardcore way, at least where I am right now. I'm pretty sure that there are cases, but I cannot witness that. We can witness this from the social media. Yeah, when you're just watching BBC news report, and they just showing the picture from the top, how people come to the park to get a little bit of the sun bathing, but they lay, I mean, at the appropriate distance of 2 to 3 meters, but it's still dangerous. I mean, I can understand personally this like sort of the hesitation, and well, as we discussed before, I mean, people have this moral dilemma. They have the information from the officials. They said to stay at home, and at the same time, they really want to go somewhere. And at the same time, it's not a very strict rule, so they would not get a fine, they would not get arrested, so there are no restrictions. And all these temptations, along with various social media provocations, they just foster this behavior. Well, yeah. What do you think about it?
Oh, quite hard to to answer. I wanted to begin our communication from the point where we left each other in December during our first and last episode. We talk about social media, how they change the world, how they change the way of communicating, especially in the young people, in teenagers, but also, I mean, in adults, the way of communicating between companies, between states, no? So often, talking about international relations, often I see like communication through a tweet more than the classic way through an ambassador, so or through diplomacy. And this is quite interesting. I was discussing yesterday these things with some of my colleagues. So what I want to ask you, what kind of big picture, what kind of big change you see from, let me say, December and till today in the social media?
It's just different. It's so different. We are in the crisis situation right now, and you're just asking a very challenging question. I cannot provide you a straightaway answer. Like, well, you cannot do this either, right? I mean, what different? I mean, there are so many different aspects. Well, the first one would probably we need to talk about the misinformation, as everyone just went to the social media, and the major source of the information became our Facebook, our Twitter, our like news feed, and people started discussing more, and so social media became more intensive. And when it becomes more intensive, it just kind of exaggerates on both ends. At some point, there would become, it would become a kinder place, a nicer place, when people mobilize to help elderly people, to help each other, to do some fun stuff together, like to recreate this amazing paintings and make the pictures of it. So they help out, they help each other out. But at the same time, social media becomes a wonderful place where the misinformation can be spread. And with this intensity, it just becomes, much easier. So you've been probably facing these cases, and have you seen any, any pieces of misinformation on social media during this time?
It's full, and I can bring you an example, being you Russian. Do you know these medicaments, these Arbidol, no? That usually we use. So two Italians posted a video from Sheremetyevo airport saying that Russia is using 3 weeks ago Arbidol as solution for the coronavirus. So this news was spread, and that very night, I think I received, I'm not exaggerating, but I don't know, 200, 300 messages and 50 calls in the middle of the night from people that I forgot that they were existing in my contact list, asking me about this. You are in Moscow, so what is going on with Arbidol? Is really a solution?
Oh my God!
And then I think you noticed I posted in Italian something telling that, guys, Arbidol, first of all, is like just one of the medicine used during the winter time against a flu. The second point is that it's not 100% sure that even against the flu is effective. So there are several discussions around this medicine, even in Russia, and we generally use this as a, let me say, not solution but pre-solution. So just to boost our immunity system, and we don't know because there is among the scientific community there is a long discussion about the side effects that Arbidol. So still there is discussion, but this is a fake news. It's a fake news.
Absolutely.
So, and still I have to, sometimes I receive, I don't know, a late message on WhatsApp asking, what's about Arbidol? I'm already, I'm already tired.
So 3 weeks later,
Sometimes,
3 weeks later, it's still there, right? And people still discussing
yeah,
this.
it's still there because do you remember when we talk about the algorithms and the feed? We didn't get this news 3 weeks ago, but somebody else in
Yeah.
their contact was sharing, and then the algorithms start to add in the news feed of these people. So this is interesting because depends also is our point of view, and you can confirm this. So it depends with who we communicate, the keywords that we use to communicate on our social media, and also not only the social media. Do you remember when we talk about Boris Johnson and Google was one of
Yeah.
my first podcasts, no? So he was trying to avoid problem on social media, like feeding Google with or trying to cheat, no, the Google's algorithm with different keywords. So this is interesting. So you can confirm that
Absolutely.
the
Yeah,
world of fake news works firstly in this way.
yeah. But at the same time, it just leads to the consequences. I suppose that people would, people elsewhere would just start purchasing just medication without the proper double check, because not many of us, not, I mean, we're not used to this, process of double checking. We would not make sure that the information is proven. And I think it was about 2 to 3 weeks ago, one, it was my mom. My mom told me that, actually, this the coronavirus, it came from United States, and they have the vaccine, and this is their way to fight for the global domination. And I mean, this is very difficult, and it comes from the very different directions. So these just two examples, and they're not the most dominating kind of stories in Russian life. And here in UK, people have been burning 5G towers because they're very much sure that this is causing the spread of coronavirus. And these are real
Yeah,
life consequences, right?
yeah. Of course, this is a discussion that I would like to have with Ilya,
Yeah,
because he's the expert of conspiracy theory.
that's right.
But
Is your man.
you can we can discuss with you. So in these days, all the social media decided to put a filter, to set up a filter for fake news related with coronavirus. Every day I get several notifications in all the websites, not only social media, that please support us in the battle against fake news and not real news, or even like not verified news. Even Wikipedia, no, that is like the open source, the mother of the open source. So it's still like trying to support the real news and not the fake news. So what do you see for the future? So this Facebook that, for example, was refusing to set up a filter for political advertisement. No, if you remember, we discussed these things in December. But Twitter, YouTube, so they will continue. What's your kind of forecast? They will continue to keep this policy or no?
I tend to be very careful with predictions because I do not remember what was there back in December where we would predict to the world to happen, but definitely it was not the global pandemic and these giant social media giants just uniting together in order to fight fake news and the spread of the misinformation. I think that it would be a very good and healthy trend to the globalization of the media field, I would say. So I'm pretty sure that also populist politicians would just use this coronavirus and this current situation of the lockdown, of the countries being closed, borders being closed, to foster the situation of more of the isolation of different countries from each other. It could be played on, but I suppose that social media would be more global than ever after the pandemic. Social media, internet in general, it will be changing, and it might need some sort of the new regulations. Right, so we just see how it becomes more and more globalized. Even though it was global just in the very beginning, but now it's facing more problems, moral problems, the problems of this, misinformation spread. So probably it would just follow the history timeline. So it would probably go just like it was going in the history when the nation state became, there, and then the not national, subnational kind of associations would emerge. So probably we would be witnessing the new regulations for the internet, and I think is a healthy trend. Though the big question mark is about the freedom of speech and the way, what can we say, what kind of regulations that's going to be, who's going to be the committee to check whether this news is fake or not fake.
Yes, and I think that the first very test will be the next year with the U.S. presidential election.
Oh, yeah.
This I think will be very, very useful test for us to understand if the course of the history change, if social media and Twitter and now of course YouTube and Instagram will keep an eye on the news as they're doing now, and trying to fight misinformation and fake news. But about fake news, yesterday happened something interesting. A Russian website launched the news that in the morning Boris Johnson was taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
And down the street said that no, this is like a Russian fake news as usual. No, a Russian fake news. Boris Johnson is in Downing Street. He's feeling better. Yes, he has a temperature, but he's keeping working. And the interesting fact that in the evening, Downing Street and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so the current deputy of Boris Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Lee, had to make a public speech and say that, so we are so sorry, but the condition of Boris Johnson are worsening, so we have to take him to St. Thomas Hospital for additional tests and to see what is going on with his health. So it's very funny, and I think that it is very dangerous now to in a state, a government, or organization that a news is a fake news, and then you have to relaunch by yourself this news, no, in a few minutes or in a few hours.
This is a very good question. Who should we trust? And can we trust our government? This is tough. I mean, I don't really have the answer here. We can just try to discuss this. I've never heard about this leakage that the Boris Johnson was sent to the hospital before. So the Russians actually would publish the information before the official media of Great Britain. That's interesting. So probably they have their informants, but yeah, it's pretty weird, especially when we're talking about the numbers of people who have coronavirus, who died of coronavirus. Can we trust the statistics? Can we trust what kind of information can we trust? What's fake news and what's not? So we probably would see upcoming more regulations and the definitions and the criteria, which would help us to make sure that this is fake news. And in the dissemination of the trust and of the trusted sources, because if we would create a monopoly for the knowledge and for the truth, it could be also very dangerous. Yeah. So state cannot hold the monopoly on truth because state has its own interests, right? So that's why I'm talking about the introduction, of the new regulatory bodies, which would have subnational kind of character and would have more of the authority, and they would be carriers of this kind of global trust, and they would be responsible for that. So unless our values as people, as as population would not change, as journalists would not just suddenly have this strive for the truth and for the complete information, and would not rush to get more of the viewers, rather than they would try to propose the precise and clear details, whatever is happening, and they would have a very honest coverage, and they would try their best to double check and spend more time to provide the better journalism. Well, if this is not happening, we would definitely need, some sort of the information police or something like that. But once again, that's not the danger. That's a
But it's
very
very
big
difficult.
global threat.
I think that because what I'm discussing with my colleagues and even with my students, nowadays we are facing the death of multilateral world, the multilateral international relations, and we're coming back to bilateral relations. So, given authority to a super, let me say, organization, independent, sovereign organization, is very difficult now, because who is deciding what? So, I mean, if you see the general council of the United Nations is keeping silent, is keeping quiet. She's not telling anything. I mean, the WHO, was like, we should declare the status of pandemia. No, later. Let's wait. Let's wait another day. So I mean, how we can rely also this international organization? I'm a strong believer of the multilateral world, because so we avoided several conflicts, but also they are not anymore trustworthy. So I mean, how we can trust them? How we can? And the question is, like, the big question mark is, who is deciding who will be this authority? I mean, Russia, China, America. I don't know.
Yeah, and if there would be representatives from everywhere, they would never come to the common agreement, and they would never get, the decision on any sort of news, which is fake, not fake. Well, this means that there is the only chance for us to everyone have to be dealing with this problem on their own or within their own communities. So the education in this case could be the option. No?
On this matter is not strictly connected with social media, but I think that can be useful. Connect the statement of Mr. Armani, Giorgio Armani. He said that the big problem of our sector, his sector, so the mode, stylists, and so on, is that we speed up too much. We speed up too much. We have to, every 2 months, a new collection. And this coronavirus crisis led us to understand that we have to slow down. So, connecting this statement to the social media and to fake news, disinformation, I think that we have to slow down a bit. We have to slow down on the previous mode that we verify news, we search different sources, and so on. Because now we are on the instant news. So we even do not read. We read the title and we share. How many times happened to us? I mean, instantly. We read the news. Oh, what the hell? Let's share. Let's open a discussion with the other. So, but now, even staying at home, every time that I see a news, I take a breath, and then, okay, let me open the news. Let me see who is writing, what is writing, who is the source, and try to find different sources. Because this is the solution. This is the solution.
Well, yeah, I agree here. I mean, your own media consumption being your own responsibility. But how optimistic are you about that? If we just turn to the psychology report, it just requires a lot of the effort from each individual, and people don't want to spend more time on that. I'm more of the person, carrying out the trust in the institutions. That maybe, I mean, how many of you students would double check the information? I've asked mine many times in the classroom, and I've been like, okay, so if you see some controversial news with a very nice title, would you share it, or would you double check? They would say, guess what? They would just share it. They would not double check. I mean, some would say that they double check, but that's not true. We are lazy. We are lazy. And I think it will be coronavirus slow down the economy, slows down our lives, maybe to some extent, change it. I mean, it's hard to say that it's like slowing us down because we have to get used to so many new changes, and we need to, I don't know, to put our life upside down, right? So it's a lot of work. We have to go through this right now. So we have this feeling, especially for the first 2 weeks, probably after lockdown, everything goes much faster. We cannot cope with the time. We cannot cope with our to-do list. And, regarding this misinformation overload right now, we cannot expect people to do that. This is the time when we have to, reconsider our societies and other institutions which would help us to do that. We cannot make sure that everyone have critical thinking and enough time to check on the news. And many people still follow traditional media yet. This is another source of the manipulation. So what do you think about it? It's hard. It's really difficult to say here.
I think that in this we have to listen to at least two sources. Came the time that we have to trust our official media, because we can do in different way. Because on the other side, not mainstream is too intoxicated. So we have to take a decision that, okay, let's trust, but let's also try to find an alternative source. Of course, with our critical thinking. Yes, maybe for us is easier because for our profession, being a researcher, every time we try to find different sources, compare, analyze, trying to apply the critical thinking on every step that we do, in our research. But this is the time to give a message of hope that maybe something will change. Yeah, maybe I'm too optimistic.
Well,
maybe I'm
Vincent,
too
you're
positive.
You're very optimistic.
But it's the time a bit to be optimistic, because especially in my country, I see people that in anger. I see people destroyed. I'm afraid. I'm concerned for. We discussed, some days ago. I'm concerned for my families. So I'm a human being too. So I'm a man too. So I always apply my critical thinking. So, but just to make a step back about the numbers with the misinformation and of fake news. I think that the problem with numbers nowadays is in terms of not only about news, but in terms of methods that different countries are using. For example, South Korea used the method that everybody must be tested. So that's why they have a figure. If you see Sweden now, they're not testing. They decided to be back on the immunity herds. How you can test now so fast and so easily in the UK, changing the policy in 2 days, 3 days, no? So, but even in Italy, we have a problem of testing because several people is sitting at home. Even my sister, she waited 6 days before to receive yesterday the test, and then she has to wait, I don't know how many other days to receive the result, because, for example, Italy is following one protocol, France is following another protocol. Again, coming back, the WHO is not giving a unique universal protocol to follow. So this is why I do not trust this organization fully. Because where are the specialists? I mean,
no, I
remember a joke. I don't know if it was a joke, but one time a colleague working for the WHO told me, don't eat mint leaves. Why? Because they will destroy your immunity system. This is our research. I said, but can you explain me? I don't know. I heard this research that we have in the office. Every time that I have like a mint leaf, I take and move. No, I don't eat, because it's also a psychological condition,
just fix you on this idea, and you might get the code.
No? So
absolutely.
We are full of biases. So
yeah, Kahneman talks about it a lot. But Vincent, like what you're saying, you refer a lot to the way how we consume information nowadays, and nowadays it's not about the truth. It's mostly about the choices. What do you choose to believe in? And you either do or you do not. So basically, it just leaves us with the culture and our own moral kind of dilemmas and the way how we want to see this reality. Are we ready for this complexity? Are we ready for contradictory information, or we want just to ease it on us? So yeah, and even like decoding the information which global organizations provide us, it requires some background knowledge. Are people capable of having all this knowledge in their heads in order to process this data? And at the same time, this data is available to everyone. So they would just misread it, and they would provide another source, another opportunity to this fake news kind of to be spread and the discussion to be started. So should we do something with that? Or it could be just, just the way it is, and then we will see where it comes.
I agree with you when you say that we are consuming news. So my position is the following, that we have to take this coronavirus as an opportunity. Because now we are learning how to consume better our resources in terms of days. Because we lost a lot of resources in the past, and now we have to consume better, to manage better. So we have to consume in different way, even the food, because we are seeing a mismatch. People, I see on my feed, on my news feed, that people is eating 6-7 times a day or cooking extra food. On the other side, people that is asking on the street food, €3, €4, because they lost their jobs, so they can feed kids. And several, even in my city, but not only in my city, several grocery or bakery, they are providing like leftover food at the end of the day for these families. So we have to rethink, because the thing that I was, let me say, a bit meditating some days ago. Every time we see this problem, for example, of resource expenditure and so on, of food and so on, far, because we see in Africa, we see in not developed countries, but nowadays we are facing this problem at home, at our home. It's our neighbor that has no a piece of bread or a glass of milk to give to their kids, or for themselves. So I think that we will change our way of consuming all our resources. I think
agree.
that will even change the way how we will consume internet. Okay, because I think that the day after the lockdown will be declared like dead, I think
everybody would go off the internet.
I will take my phone, my laptop. I will close in some room and try to get back the feeling of life. I mean, the street life. This is the first things that I would like to do. And of course, coming to your question, we have to think to consume in different way the news.
I
Every
agree.
time I have several friends, journalists, because when I was a teenager, I was working for a local radio station, and several of my friends they became professional journalists for national-wide television or news. Every time I try to speak with them when they talk about Russia, I say, "But sorry, what is the cost for you to send me a WhatsApp and to ask me what is going on there? Is it true? It's not true?" Because I say, you're not losing a reader, you're losing a friend. Because between us was like not only friendship, but was the key was trust. So I'm
Hmm.
not telling that I'm holding the truth, but at least you can compare what are my news, what are the news that your source from Italy is giving you. So I think that we have to change the way of consuming. And the rush should change also. The first that catch the price in terms of providing and writing a news is not the solution. So now he's who first come win the post, no? As in the UK they say for the election. But it's not a competition. So we have not to compete when we are talking about life or people. Okay. So I understand that now the money, the financing, the advertising, the sponsor that you get from big company provide you a salary, provide you with food and so on. But I think that this time we have the opportunity. The coronavirus is giving us the opportunity to slow down and to change the way of consuming our news.
Well, it's very complicated what you're saying right now, and it's very optimistic once again. I think we can already see some sort of the changes in marketing and advertising. At least here,
Yes.
ads they just become more humane kind of, and people start thinking about what should be shown there, what should not be shown. So they're more sensitive to what's going on in the world right now. The same thing happening with the marketing, but there's going to be just quite many changes regarding the news consumption, regarding the future of the workplaces, how we're going to adapt to this new environment where we're just going to rush to the office as well. I'm pretty sure that quite many people would enjoy staying and working from home at some point, but
With a
not
friend of
not
mine,
all of these people. Yeah,
yesterday I was
yeah. Then
discussing with the king. I need to make a campaign for fund, but that people will support you. In Europe, these things that I'm studying now, no, I'm exploring now. And I say, I read quite this.
this is how the internet works now. Too sad. Hey, Vincent, you're muted.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, we are still live. Was some problem with connection? I think too many people using connection in
I suppose,
in
yeah, of
Russia.
course. Like it's a lot of the pressure on the internet providers. It's really hard. Like increased
Yeah,
traffic is just killing everything. So yeah, we talked about the way how our lives going to change. I think it's going to be like quite a nice book, Life Before and After Coronavirus. Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder
So
who's
let's
gonna
try
get on
to
this. Summarize.
let's try to raise and close this very interesting usual with you, because we every time we try to get you. And so my, then I will see yours, is that the world will change in a better. So tell me your point of view.
How the world's gonna change? Well, I'm pretty sure that all the changes there's gonna be positive, more or less. But I'm afraid that it's not exactly what's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure that people on their kind of like level of the personal, I don't know, understanding of the reality, and human beings would become kinder and more gentle to the others, and they would become more sensitive. So I think that our nature would change, but at the same time, it's very difficult to to trace how the pandemic situation is going to be exploited by those who want to burn out the tension between others. Are we going to blame the countries where the spread of the virus happened the fastest? Are we going to, I don't know, to keep on waiting for another threat to come from somewhere else? Are we going to impose new regulations on the I don't know, air carriers, and we will think that flights should be stopped, I don't know, for a while to some places? It's very difficult. Like, who's going to pay for this suffering of the world? Are we going to frame it in a way that it was like, a danger and someone should be responsible for that? Are we going to talk and discuss like how our governments responded to the situation? I think there's going to be a lot of discussion at the political level and on the level of kind of international and the globalized. I think we're going to revise our global world, and I am not very optimistic about the end of this discussion. I am quite afraid that it might tend, to more conservative view that globalization was not a good thing, and I'm very scared of that. So, I mean, we cannot neglect these possible threats. And generally, we would be much nicer and kinder to our neighbors. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that many people finally met their neighbors, even living in a big apartment.
My neighbor still, since he knew that I'm Italian, is never smiling to me. So there is also this matter. But okay, so we left for a lot of material for the next weeks. Maybe in a couple of weeks we'll catch up again, and we'll try to.
And finally, let's talk about Tinder.
Yeah, your research. Yeah, we'll talk about your research, and it could be interesting. So we will understand how Tinder changed during the coronavirus. I gave you a tip during our last communication, during our last phone call. So I'm waiting to see the result of that hint that I launched to you. So Olia, thank you very much for your time.
Vincent.
Thank you for all of you that were online today, and I apologize for this technical problem. It depends neither me neither from Olia. Like, internet is quite crazy in these days, so technology problem. So our memory traffic. So thank you very much, and of course this live stream will be posted also on 1984, the podcast in English that you can find on Apple platform, Spotify for to stay in Europe or in America or everywhere else, and Castbox and Google Podcast as well. So thank you very much, and see you the next time.
Ciao, Vincent. Ciao.